welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute honour to be joined by the fabulous Dr. Torkil Færø. Dr. Torkil, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
I'm so looking forward to our conversation, and I'm so thrilled that you've chosen to join us live from Norway in the ER. So I mean, we are really getting you where you work. But before we get stuck into our conversation, let me share with the wider audience who don't know you yet a little bit more about you. So Dr. Torkil is a GP and an emergency physician. He's a documentary filmmaker, author and photographer. Over 26 years as a freelance doctor, he's worked all over Norway, had hundreds of thousands of consultations, and therefore gained a unique picture of the diseases that plague us. He learned that at its cause is most often found in the stresses our lifestyle place on our bodies. When his father died at 73, he realised that he had to change his own lifestyle, being 40 pounds overweight, undertrained, overstressed, sleeping, and drinking alcohol daily. He learned that the lifestyle could deprive him of decades. Using wearables, he's found a way to track and regulate his nervous system and physiology. Dr. Torkil is an award-winning photographer, author of The Camera Cure, and has made TV films about his pilgrimages to Nidaros and Santiago de Compostela. An inveterate traveller, he's visited over 80 countries and speaks 8 languages and lives in Norway. 8 languages, that's amazing. We've just found out I barely can speak one of them most of the time. And what an amazing journey you've been on. So doctor, photographer, filmmaker, author. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey so far, please?
Yes, I decided early on that I wanted to live my life as an adventure. I wanted to seek and explore and find out why are things as they are. And I found out that traveling, being a doctor, doing photography, exploring the world, traveling was my way of kind of making the most use of these hopefully 80 years that I'll be able to squeeze out of life. And that was my intention, and that is what I've been doing. That is why I've been a freelance doctor and photographer all of these 25 years as I've been working. So, and still today, I'm working tonight as a doctor, then at the ER, and tomorrow I'll be writing. So it's this mix that I like. So then I also never get tired of things. I think if I was only working as a doctor all the time, I would be tired and get bored with it, and the same with the photography. If you do it all the time, so this going back and forth between these two careers or ways of living has been, it's been giving me a good life and giving me a lot of knowledge that I wouldn't have known if I had only worked with sick people. So kind of the key behind the camera cure that you mentioned and the pulse cure is that I needed to work with people who were healthy and with people who were sick, because the healthy ones are kind of the control group that I could see that there's a different kind of behavior with the people that I see more frequently in the ER and the people that I don't see more frequently. And I see them while I'm doing photography and teaching photography around the world. So I think this mix has actually been instrumental in making the books that I've been writing and discovering the importance of the autonomic nervous system that I describe in the Pulse Cure.
I love that, because like you say, you kind of need to have both sides of the coin, don't you, to make the picture whole and to help you to, I guess, do that research and identify the cure and how we can actually better utilize it. I was fascinated, you've talked about how you can use wearables, of which very often people are using them these days, to actually better track and then regulate. And I think that for me was the bit that was really interesting, is it's that being able to be more intentional, I guess, about the choices that you're making, because you've got more information available to you to determine those choices. So tell me more about the cure and how it's helping.
Yes, so the pulse cure is, of course, about how the heart rate and our pulse can reveal so much about the state of our body and of our autonomic nervous system. So the heart, is both kind of the engine, but it's also kind of a command center, a control center, if you will, that will demonstrate and reveal the intensity of our lifestyle, our stress levels. And it can tell us so much more than we as doctors could hope for. And for some reason, we have largely overlooked this opportunity to be able to look into our function. And so much of the diseases that we treat as doctors, even here in the ER, every day, has its base in the root cause in chronic inflammation and in a stress level that is too high, and particularly too high over time. So we don't get to relax enough to get into the parasympathetic restful state. And it's of course very difficult when you don't know what that is, whether you are in the parasympathetic state. And the watches and the rings and all the new devices can tell us that, whether we are in the stressful state or not, and accumulate it throughout the day and night to see if your lifestyle is sustainable and compatible with good health, which is often is not the case.
That's fascinating, because we often are blind to the things that we're doing to ourselves that get them wrong, aren't we? We think, well, it's all right, I've always lived like this, but actually, unless we better understand it, then we can't make better choices. But I guess one of the things that would be interesting is, could it cause more stress tracking our pulse than not tracking it, because we can now see that we're stressed and we're looking at it, or do you find it's actually just helpful?
Yes, that's the most common question I get, and the answer is that most often it will not be stressful. It will, on the other hand, it will be more fun and interesting to have this window into our own function. I think you could probably compare it to driving your car, and your speedometer and all the instruments on your dashboard goes black. Okay,
Yeah.
then you would be stressed, and this is the situation for us, that now we don't have this sense of our inner stress level, and particularly not our stress level over time. We just haven't never needed that sense throughout evolutionary history. The priority has been on outside threats, from other animals, from different things, so you have an excellent eyesight, excellent hearing, a sense of touch. If I touch something warm, I take my fingers away immediately. But the sense of our heart rate, we really don't have. So whether I just at the moment have 60 or 85 or maybe even 90 in heart rate, I couldn't tell. And that would represent a huge step in stress level and inflammation level in our body. So we're just not equipped to feel this. So it's kind of not our fault that we don't. When we feel stressed, in my experience, then we are very stressed. Then we are boiling. But we all the time we're kind of simmering, and we have to kind of turn the plate off, or the heat off totally, to be able to go into the deep relaxed state where our body can recover efficiently. And that is a problem.
I love that. I guess, back with the car analogy, if we don't look after the car, we don't keep putting petrol in it, and we don't send it in for regular servicing and change all the other bits, the car's not going to work, is it? And I guess the same is true of us. If we don't take care, and we don't allow ourselves to rest, then you kind of every day you're running a little bit more on empty, aren't you? And we often live those lifestyles where that just keeps perpetuating, doesn't it? It keeps getting worse. I know before I did this, when I was in corporate life, you would think nothing of getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the airport to fly somewhere, to still be working at midnight or 2 o'clock, and that would just be an everyday thing. And it became a way of life. It didn't become something you even gave any consideration to. Whereas now you can look at it and go, how did I even survive that? How did that be
Yeah. And that would be a very hard, that would be a very hard lifestyle. And you would see the price of that on your wearable, on your smart ring or smartwatch. You could see that, okay, we're not built for that level of stress. We're not constructed for this, because our bodies, our physiology is ancient, and we still have this physiology even in this modern, fast-paced world. And it's kind of fast-paced mentally and not necessarily fast-paced, physically. A lot of people don't move enough. A lot of people move too much, and well, so the circumstances that we live under are not the circumstances where our bodies and our minds are developed. So that gives us problems. And so we need to go a little bit back to the lifestyle of the hunter-gatherers. You're not have to go all the way back to the savannah and dress totally, but we need to do some of the same things that they were doing. Sleeping according to the circadian rhythm, moving, resting, hunting, staying together, having good relationships, eating real food and not the ultra processed food, and minimizing alcohol, and a lot of the different strategies that I explain in the book, because what seems to be good for our heart rate, that seems to be a lifestyle that is closer to the one we are developed for.
I love that. So what is it that makes alcohol stress our bodies out so much?
That is because alcohol will be metabolized into acetaldehyde, and that is so poisonous that the body has to prioritize getting rid of that before anything else. So that is why the resources for your immune system will be less, because your body is busy working on detoxifying alcohol, which is why after you've been drinking alcohol, you're more susceptible to having any infectious disease. And of course, drinking too much alcohol over time, you can only look around you and see how does alcoholics look, how are their health state, and it's some of the worst that you can get. So, and you could see it on the watches. And I used to drink. I've done all the mistakes in my book, properly. So I used to drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine every day, thinking it would relax me after a hard day of working at the office and small children and all of this busy lifestyle. And it would, calm me down in the evening. But what I did not see, and what I can see now with the wearables, is that the stress level overnight is just terrible. And it's just as much stress as if I'm holding a lecture for 200 people through 6 hours during the night if I have like 4 glasses of wine. So it's, well, when you see the physiological price of alcohol, then it gets so much easier to be motivated to reduce it towards a more sustainable level. Yeah.
That makes total sense, because sometimes it's the unseen, isn't it? And the unseen means we can forget about it, not make those choices. But I think equally, we'll bring on to my next question. Often you find that, or at least I certainly find, if I've had a couple of glasses of wine, I don't sleep as well. And having good night's sleep is so vital to us, isn't it? So how can we sleep better?
Yes, so there's some strategies that I outline, and that would be, one thing would be to have a good sleep consistency, that you go to bed and you wake up at the same time every day. Preferably, you should wake up without the alarm clock. It's kind of, if you need the alarm clock, you're not sleeping long enough. So, but of course, many people can't do that. But you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and that is the sleep that the wearables count the sleep. It's not the time in bed, but it's what they can find. So often, if you are in bed for 8 hours, then 7.5 hours will be asleep. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and it should be restorative. That you could see from your heart rate variability that it's restorative, and it's because if you have been drinking alcohol, you could well be sleeping 8 hours, but the heart rate variability, as a sign that your body is under pressure, will be low. So it will be non-restorative. It's kind of the answer that you will get on your phone after such a night. And the trick is also to, in the evening, dim the lights in the evening, and to calm down the last 1 or 2 hours before you go to bed. Go in for a soft landing, so to speak. That will make the sleep more effective once you're asleep. Yeah.
I love that. It's kind of always setting those conditions, isn't it? I've got a 7-year-old, so it's the same thing with her. It's like half an hour before, making sure that all TVs and things are off, and we're now reading, and it's nice and quiet and it's calm. always
Right.
gets off to sleep a lot better than it's like, right, we've just turned
Yeah.
the TV off, and then let's try and now take this hyped up little bundle of energy and try and navigate them into sleep is never as easy to do as if you've set the scene. And I love that whole piece around, you're right, you know, if we manage to not need our alarm. I mean, my 7-year-old tries to be my alarm clock anyway. She bounds in at 6:30 every day, good morning, mummy. So you kind of have to respond to that. But actually, I'm usually awake just before, because to your point, it's in that consistency, isn't it? I broadly go to bed at a similar time. I broadly get up between 6 and 6:30. So your body naturally starts to adapt to that, I guess. Would that be fair? Does it adapt to the consistency that we provide it with?
Yeah. So if you have the good sleep consistency, then the brain will go faster into the right sleep phases. It will kind of be prepared. It will be a routine, so it will do it more efficiently. So if you sleep less than 7 hours, then this may be the reason why you can tolerate that. But in general, sleeping less than 6 hours compared to more than 7 hours will double your risk of cancer. So it's not only uncomfortable and you are tired, that I used to think, that because I used to work a lot of night watches, and so on. And then I would, of course, understand that this is very uncomfortable and I get kind of a jet lag, but that is downright dangerous. I can get cancer from it. We didn't think about that 10 years ago, but now we know so much more about these things. So we know so much more about how lifestyle can affect our longevity and health. Now we actually know that if you live more or less according to my advice in the postcure, you can live 24 years longer for males and 21 years longer for females, compared to if you don't do those strategies. So it's quite a lot to gain from that in extra time and in extra healthy time as well, because the health span will also be longer, like the lifespan.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? That says there's a real reason for us to be more intentional about what we're doing with ourselves, and the fact that wearables now allow us to have access to that. Like you say, 10 years ago, no one would have known, but equally, not very many people would have been walking around wearing anything that would give them the opportunity to access that level of information, would they?
Yeah. And it's like just suddenly getting a speedometer, just like if you have been driving your car without knowing your speed or without knowing how much gas is left, it's just guesswork. And to now that we have this, and we have it from such a simple thing as our heart rate, it should be obvious.
Yeah.
Why hasn't this been kind of exploited before, before until now? Because my book is actually the first book in the world that is kind of this guidebook in how to use the wearables and connect it to good lifestyle strategies, because the good lifestyle strategies will give results in our heart rates. So whatever you do is bad for your health will be seen in the heart rate, and what is good will also be seen in the heart rate variability. So it's well, it's at least it gives a lot of hope for the future that we are able to because all the diseases that we treat now, like heart disease, and so much also of the cancer, of dementia, of Parkinson, autoimmune diseases, they're avoidable. We didn't need to have them. If we have a stress level and good cells, good mitochondria in our cells, we would not get these diseases. And which is why with this good lifestyle that you live 24 years longer, because you don't get these diseases. So that's also very sad now when I'm working here at the ER, that so many of the patients that I see here that come in, I know that you didn't have to be here. With another lifestyle, with other choices, you would be well. You wouldn't have, because one of the most hardest thing to do is to struggle with disease. If you get 50 or 60 and you struggle with, so many people come, they have 3, 4, 5 different diseases, treated by different specialists. It's almost, for so many people, it's almost like a full-time job, just managing this. And they're also so reduced in their daily activities that there's so much thing they can't do. They can't run. They have trouble getting upstairs, and sleeping well at night. They may have sleep apnea, and yeah, and their medications may give them also so many side effects. Once you get up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 medications every day, it can get very difficult to navigate this.
Yeah, it can be so hard, can't it? I mean, I know sadly we lost my dad this year, but he had Parkinson's for 21 years before he died. And like you say, there's such a mutating illness, and then there's so many other bits that come on, and it does completely change not just that person's life, but the lives of the people around them, while they're trying to give them the best life that they can possibly have.
Yeah, and Parkinson is one of the diseases that are connected with heart rate variability. So if you Google Parkinson and heart rate variability, you'll find that heart rate variability can predict the risk of getting Parkinson's disease. And so much in Parkinson's disease is also sleep and stress and lifestyle that would prevent any person from getting it. And so stress is also involved in Parkinson, and stress. When I talk about stress, I talk about stress in a broad sense, not just the mental stress that, if you ask people if it's busy life or trouble at work or in the family life and so on. Stress can come from alcohol, as I said, from poor sleep, from sleep apnea, from eating food that you cannot tolerate, from eating too late at night, or to eat too many hours of the day. So many people find out that their health increases when they start restricting their feeding window to maybe 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day, and then not eating outside of those hours. So there's so much more stress than that we are aware of. And heat, for example, lack of sunshine, also, and that is a big problem in the UK. I know that, and the big biobank study now from the UK, came out this summer, saying that the ones who get more sunshine in the southern England, they live longer than in the north, just because of the sun exposure. So there's so lack of sun will be, make our cells not so effective, and that will create a stress on our system that is measurable in the heart rate.
Wow, it's amazing how everything is so interconnected, isn't it? And I love that actually in your book you're not just sharing what it is, but also some strategies on how to change it. Because very often we read books and they tell us what it is, and then you're left floundering, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, now I know more, but I still don't know how to fix it. I haven't got any strategies for improving the situation. And I know that your book actually includes both, doesn't it? It's like not just this is what it is and this is why it's important, but actually here are some usable strategies that you can implement that will allow you to improve the situation, to improve the results. And I love that then they are trackable and seeable in the wearable, so that you can actually not just convince yourself you're getting better, but you can actually see that you are getting better as a result of trying those. So how do you work out what is the best wearable to use so that you can get the best information? Is there anything you can share with us on how we could best identify what to use?
Yes, and by far the best ones at the moment, I must say that because there's so much development in this area. But at the moment, the Garmin watches are both the cheapest. You can get it down to, I don't know how many pounds. It would be 100 pounds maybe. Yeah, 100 pounds and upwards, until 10 times that price for the very best ones. But the entrance level should be available for like anyone. And they have this body battery system, and they have the stress level 24 hours, so you can identify, you can see that, oh, it was the conversation with this guy at work that stressed me out, after, or it was this meal containing maybe, chili or some substance that you cannot tolerate very well. So you can kind of go and micromanage your stress level. And that is, of course, for the most eager ones, who wants to do that. And then most of all the wearables, they have some way of explaining heart rate variability and stress level. So the Oura Ring would be good, particularly for sleep and the sleep phases. The Apple Watch you can use. It's not as good as the Garmin ones, but you can use an app called Athletic. It's a combination of athlete and analytic you can use. And other than that, most like Fitbit, a lot of people have that, and most of them will be able to tell you more or less how you're doing. Even though Garmin is the best one. So all of them are so much better, at least, than not having any clue. That at least you get so much more information from these devices.
Yeah, I love that because obviously the more information we've got, the more informed we are in the choices that we make, because we're then being intentional with them, aren't we? And I think that's part of the battle, isn't it? Is being more intentional. I wonder, is there any difference between the importance of tracking as to whether or not you're male or female?
Of course. It's not in general, it's not the difference in tracking, but the menstrual cycle and so much of the female hormones and reproductive physiology is connected to heart rate variability. So it's much more important for women than men because of the menstrual cycle, to be able to see that for so many women, the week before menstruation is a physiological load. So the PMS is not just a symptom or what you feel. You can see it just like alcohol. You can see it on the heart rate variability, that it will be lower the week before menstruation if you are stressed. And that is the thing, because if you are having too much cortisol in your system because you are stressed, it will kind of backfire to the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus in the brain, and it will disturb the female reproductive hormones, including progesterone, and progesterone is calming for the system. So many people find that when they are able to mitigate the stress in the week before menstruation, their PMS symptoms just not necessarily completely vanish, but so much easier to manage. And you can see the result in the heart rate, that your heart rate will be better. And heart rate variability is also coupled to so many of the problems for women with endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's also coupled to too much stress, too much sympathetic activation in the autonomic nervous system. And also, of course, women in the perimenopause and menopause, they can see that their heart rate variability becomes worse in that time. And many can see that when they start using particularly bioidentical hormones, that their heart rate variability will be better.
Wow.
And in pregnancy, it's important also for fertility. So for infertility is, and once again, just Google it, infertility is also coupled to heart rate variability, because when your body is under stress, it's kind of a signal to your whole body that you should not really get pregnant, so when you are too stressed, that will affect your ability to conceive, both in the IVF, in this I don't know exactly the name, this artificial conception, and normal. So fertility has a connection to stress and heart rate variability. So many people find out that if they have trouble conceiving, that when they get their stress under control, is so much easier. And also abortions, if you have this kind of habitual spontaneous abortions, is also coupled to stress levels and heart rate variability. So then, of course, then when you get this speedometer on your hand, it gives you the power to control this and to adjust your physiological speed, so to say. So it's actually a huge shift in the healthcare system, and I know that you in the NHS, you need that now. So it's from the healthcare system and into your own hands. So it's a shift of power, and it's also a shift of focus from after you get sick until avoid getting sick. Because what is the strategy in all of the healthcare system in the Western world is that we are waiting until people get sick, and then we come in and treat. It's very expensive. It's really unnecessary, and I would say it's almost unethical to have this as a strategy, when we know now how much health we can prevent with preventative healthcare, which is much cheaper. I would say all the advice that I have in the Pulse Cure, they're free. It's meditation, it's breath work, it's cold plunges, cold showers, it's sleep, it's activity, it's stress management, and regarding alcohol and nicotine, because nicotine in vaping and other sources of nicotine is also stressful. And eating real food instead of ultra processed food does not have to be more expensive. And
Yeah,
all of these advice are free. And and also sunlight, of course, and nature, all of these things that can improve your health does not cost anything, and
yeah,
it's available to anyone. And as you probably also saw in during COVID, that it's the ones with the lifestyle that is not in tune with the things I just mentioned. Those are the ones getting the sickest and have the biggest risk of dying and getting into the ICU.
yeah. Wow, it's amazing, and it definitely gives you food for thought in that, being able to take control, and then thinking back and reflecting on previous experiences when I've been ill. They've always come after a period of high stress, because I think sometimes I always think that's the way my body then responds to it. It's like, you're not listening to me, you're highly stressed, and therefore I'm going to make you stop. I'm going to make you take pause. And it's only when you look back at it that you can see that there's that cycle. But by using our awareness
Yes.
better, we can start to see the cycle and take different action before it gets to that point, can't
They
we?
would they would warn you in front, definitely, and that is maybe the most important thing, and particularly because the ones most susceptible to a burnout, they're the ones who are burning, and that's particularly effective women, 25 to 40, wanting to do everything right all the time, never stopping, and they are the most precious, people we have, and
Yeah,
that they tend to crash, and get into a fatigue situation and being out of order, for months and years. That's very costly. So
yeah,
and they would see, and they are the most biggest fans of the Pulse Cure, because now they finally have a way to see that, okay, you're overdoing it. You need to calm down, and many of them say the watches and smartwatches gives them a license to rest, a license that they would not give themselves.
yeah.
They would just continue and push on, and that would come with a price. And so many people have found that out unnecessarily, because if they had this speedometer, they would have discovered it, and it would have warned them before they crash, so to speak.
It's so important, and I totally get that part. As women, very often you've got the job and the home and the family and everything, and therefore you don't rest. You don't feel you can rest. It feels
Yeah.
selfish almost to rest. So I think giving yourself something. Oh, it's not being selfish, because if I don't do this, I won't be here to do everything else. I can see how that would really help. In kind of like actually stopping, actually going to, I can't carry on and do well doing all of these things for long. Yeah, I can do it, but actually I'm reducing how long I will be able to do it overall, because I'm not taking care. Dr. Torkil, it's been an absolute delight chatting to you. I've learned so very much. I'm conscious of your time as well, and I know you're working very soon as in the ER. So I want to give you a chance also to get some rest before you have to start, which I'm sure is a stress invoking environment.
It's actually not. I would say
Is it
that,
not?
because that's so important. Because I would think that, normally I
Yeah.
would think that, okay, going to work in the ER is stress. I would just think that. But what I've seen on my watches is that the thing that can calm me the most down is working at the ER. That
Oh,
is
wow.
that is when I in kind of a flow zone. That is when I'm with equanimity. And maybe I'm just trained to do that, because what as an emergency worker, you know that if there is, like disease and health and life at stake, then you at least you need to calm down to take the right choices. So that may be part of it, but now I know that I can work. That is no problem. That is not what is stressing me. I can see clearly from my heart rate that being here, doing this work now for 7 hours, that's the easiest thing to do. So a lot of people get those surprises that when they see the results of their actions, they will get. I haven't met anyone that has not been really surprised by what they can read from their heart rate.
Yeah, I can't wait to read mine now, because I think you're right. Sometimes we can convince ourselves that we think we know where the stress is coming from, and it sounds like actually what we'll find out is it probably isn't coming where we think it is, and it's probably coming somewhere else, and that's something that we can address. But how can people get in touch with you and learn more?
Yeah, the book, of course, I can get anywhere, like on Amazon or any bookstore, or it may not be in the physical bookstore, but they'll be able to order it. And it's also an audiobook. So if you have like an iPhone, you can get it on your book app on the iPhone or anywhere. We have the pulsecure.com, which is the website. I have a webinar there and a blog there. You can see some of the information that I share. And I'm on Dr. Torkil on Instagram. That is part Norwegian, part English, but I try to translate as much as I can and then text it with in English. So it should be valuable information there too.
Oh, I love it. And we will make sure, obviously, all of those details are in the notes below. So for anybody listening and watching, we'll make it super easy for you to connect and learn more about the Pulse Cure. Dr. Torkil, thank you so very much for coming on and being such a fascinating guest. You've definitely got me wanting to get off and go and check my pulse and kind of work out where my stresses are coming from. And you've also shared some great strategies on how we can address some of those by eating at the right times, by thinking about making sure that we've got that balance of things like breath work, like meditation, like being out in nature, and I guess just being intentional with our choices. So my greatest thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And for everybody watching and listening, I hope you found it equally as insightful and interesting as I did. And until next time, take care.